I get a lot of comments from people about how difficult it must be to be vulnerable on this podcast and put myself out there in the way that I do. And honestly, not that hard because I'm just standing here staring at a microphone right now, watching some lines go up and down on the screen. And I don't actually get a lot of interaction on my posts to where people are, giving any kind of feedback or criticism. So I'm basically just screaming into the void with this. It's very easy. The most difficult part of this podcast is finding out how to start each episode. Because once I start talking, I can go off of my notes and make everything flow pretty easily. But figuring out those magical words that get that flow going is probably the most difficult part of the podcast. And I was sitting here, I had my whole episode laid out, and I really wanted to get it recorded today, and I couldn't figure out how to start it. And I was like, man, this really is the most difficult part of the podcast, isn't it? And then I was like, there it is. There's my beginning. Because today's episode is a lot about flow and letting go and allowing things to just happen. And the action that triggers that actually happening. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Naomi, and this is Mosaic in Progress. Today, I want to talk about flow and letting go and manifestation, but I don't want to talk about it in the very woo-woo kind of sparkly vision board type way. I want to get into the nitty-gritty and the dirty part of it. It's been a weird few months. I've been unemployed now for almost 2 months, which you know if you've been following the podcast. And I haven't been able to pay a lot of my bills, including my car loan, and they are threatening to repo my car, my dream car that I've had for less than a year. And I was crying about that to a friend of mine, and she said, everything's going to work out. You know this. This is what the Fibonacci sequence tells us, that everything always works out. And I am familiar mathematically with the Fibonacci sequence and the Fibonacci spiral, and I know that it has some esoteric components to it, but I've never really read anything about it or looked into it, so I decided to do that. And it basically is that everything is, a spiral. I'm condensing it down, that everything is circular. Everything goes in cycles, and things are going to get worse, and then they're going to get better, and then they're going to get worse, and then they're going to get better, and that's just the way that life goes. I love anything that's going to incorporate math and physics into it. So that, it was a good metaphor for me to hold on to. And for a long time, I've been listening to Abraham Hicks meditations and reading the works of Abraham Hicks and things like that. And for a long time, I've been listening to Queen Herbie and her songs and her podcasts about manifesting and getting yourself in alignment. And recently I've been listening to a new artist. He's not new, but new to me, called Abel Hart. And I'm doing all these things. And the thing is that anything with creation is like sex. And this is why my podcast is 18 plus, because it's not dirty, but we are all adults here and we can have adult conversations. Sex is a metaphor for creation. I think a lot of us struggle to see it in that way because of abuse. And I think that there's two very prevalent types of abuse in our society that prevent us from seeing these two things, both creation, manifestation, and sex, as the very magical things that they are, because there's a lot of sexual abuse and domestic violence in this country. And even if it's not overt sexual abuse, there's a lot of covert sexual abuse. There is a lot of men in heterosexual marriages who do not care about their wife's pleasure. I can count probably on one hand and still have lots of fingers left over the number of women I know in heterosexual marriages who are satisfied by their husbands sexually, or that he even cares about their sexual pleasure. And it's a huge problem in this country to the point that we just make jokes about it, at the expense of women, of course. It's, all about how they're too difficult to understand and their bodies are too complicated and they take too much work. And so that in and itself is a form of abuse. It's neglect. I'm not saying, they need to be thrown in jail for it in that sense, but it is a trauma to be in a relationship with someone who does not care about your sexual pleasure, to be in a sexual relationship with someone who does not care about your sexual pleasure, who is using you for their own pleasure and does not care about yours. And so it's hard to view sex as magical if that is your reality. Similarly, if you live in a society where you have to work yourself to death just to afford basic necessities, or you have to prove that you are unable to work yourself to death, and you have to meet very specific requirements, and you have to continue to prove that over and over again to receive any kind of assistance so that you can live below the poverty line and sometimes eat and sometimes afford your medicine, then you do not see having your necessities, having your needs met as something that is inherently deserved. And we have both of those rampant in our society today, that neither having your needs met, just basic survival needs, is considered a right, considered deserved. And we have the majority of people in long-term relationships not having their sexual needs met. And that's heartbreaking, and it's sad, and it's not how things should be in a perfect world, if there is such a thing as that. And I want to bring that up because, circling back, I was preparing for my podcast topic this morning, and I went to look something up, and I have a friend. She runs a business called The Acceptance Alchemist, and she's just a beautiful, amazing human being in and of herself. But the work that she does is so important, and it's so necessary, and so life-changing for the people who work with her to do it. Her whole thing with all of the work that she does is she does a lot with neurolinguistic programming, but she says, like, her little tagline is question your story. And it was funny because earlier this morning, another friend of mine, who I don't think they know each other at all, had posted that life is only the stories we tell ourselves. And if you think that's not true, it is because you are telling yourself a story about that. It reminded me, I'm pretty sure it was Byron Katie, when I read her book, Loving What Is. I think it was in that book that she said basically that you only experience what you think, because time happens so quickly and we experience life so quickly that once we've had the experience, we don't have time to be in the experience. And so our experience of it is what we're thinking about what happened, 1 second ago or half a second ago or whatever, that our only experience of life is what we think about it. Fascinating stuff to talk about and think about. But it was so interesting to have her pop up with her question your story mindset. And she was talking about a specific situation with her and a friend, and on releasing and letting go and forgiveness, and her particular practice with how she does that. As I was listening to it, I was like, oh, this is where I'm at with my finances. Is this, I'm holding on to this baggage. I'm holding on to resentment. Holding on to a lot of resentment about the stories that I was given. Because most of them I did not come up with on my own. They were handed down to me like family heirlooms that were precious and needed to be kept and guarded. I've really struggled with those, and I think that she really hit on something that I needed to hear this morning with talking about letting go of the resentment and giving forgiveness to yourself, to the other person, to whatever the story is, to forgive it and let it go. Going back to the sex metaphor, if you followed my podcast for any time at all, you know that I have had pretty significant problems with endometriosis and other similar and related issues. One of the biggest problems that was causing my pain was pelvic floor tension. And it was to the point that I was having muscle spasms. I feel like I probably should have put a TMI warning at the beginning of this episode. I'll put it in the description. But I was having muscle spasms. Felt like someone was shoving an ice pick up inside me. And my doctor sent me to a pelvic floor physical therapist. She did her examination and we were making the plan, and she said I had probably the tightest pelvic floor she'd ever seen. And I said, that sounds like a compliment, but you didn't say it like that. And I know this woman was sitting there like, I don't get paid enough. But as she was working on the exercises with me and working on the exercises to let go of the tension and to release the tension, almost impossible. Literally almost impossible. She told me exactly what I needed to do and how I needed to do it, and I physically could not do it for weeks. Like, could not. Physically impossible. And she hooked me up to this machine with these electrodes all over my legs and abdomen and everything that measured my muscle contractility. And she would have me contract and then let go, and she had me talking about stuff, trying to get me relaxed, and somehow got me talking about my dad, and everything really tightened up there. All of my muscles just like spazzed out when we got on that subject. But she said that I never fully let go at any point. Even when I was doing the exercises to let go, that my muscles never fully relaxed and never fully let go. My point in telling you that story is this. It takes work to let go. And I say this because I've seen a lot of things recently, and no offense to Abel Hart, because I think his content is awesome, but I saw a video from him, I think it was yesterday. He was talking about how you just have to let go. You just have to let go to let things happen. And then he said, no, you still have to do the work. And I think we misunderstand what work you have to do when you let go to allow in what it is that you want. Because it's not, all right, I'm letting go and now I'm going to go out and pound pavement and hand out resumes and whatever. No, it's not like that. It is a complete surrender. And again, the sex metaphor works. You cannot, getting graphic here, you cannot let someone in and experience what you want to experience if you don't let go. It will be painful. You cannot let in what you want while still holding on. You have to let go. You have to release. You have to relax. You have to trust that what is coming in is going to be what you want, and it's going to be amazing. And you don't have to control it. And you don't have to do anything to keep yourself safe while you're allowing this in. That is a very important piece of this metaphor that goes back to all of the abuse. Because if you have a history of financial abuse, you're not going to trust somebody else to take care of you in the interim while you're trying to find a job. No offense to whoever that person is. You got nothing but trauma to fall back on for your experiences. If you have a history of sexual abuse, you are not going to trust that whoever it is that's coming in is not going to hurt you. So it does take work, but the work is on you being able to release the death grip that you have on the side of the cliff and know that at the bottom there is a pillow factory, and that is a very niche reference that some people may or may not get. And that is a story for another time. Getting back to the point, our thoughts are our reality, and thoughts become things. So if you believe that you have to earn a living, then you will have to earn a living your entire life. If you believe that people will always let you down, then they will consistently prove that to you over and over and over again. Because that's what you are aligning with. That's what you are allowing in. You are allowing in only what you believe. And so in order to change your life, you have to change your beliefs. You have to shift your perspective. And as I was thinking about this subject, I kept remembering this comic strip. And I used to read the newspaper all the time. I loved the news. I miss newspapers. I wish I could have it delivered to my house. They quit delivering it where I live. I could go up to the store and buy one on Sundays only. But I don't want to get out on Sunday morning and go drive somewhere and get a paper. And so I don't get the paper anymore. And it makes me sad because I did used to have it delivered. I got the Sunday paper delivered and it made me happy, and I would read the headlines and I would read pretty much everything in the lifestyle section. I always read the funny papers, the comic strips. It was like my little routine. It was my happy thing. And I miss that more than almost anything else that has gone the way of Blockbuster Video. But I was reading this comic strip, and I do not remember the name of the comic strip. But it was about this couple and their, I can't remember if they had 2 or 3 kids, but it was about this couple and their kids. And this particular one, the mom was going shopping, and the little girl was in the shopping cart with her, or maybe she was in front. Anyway, the little girl was shopping with her, and she grabbed something off the shelf. Mom, can I buy this? And her mom kind of rolls her eyes, and she says, no, we can't buy that. And she says, but I really want it. And she said, you can't buy, it doesn't make sense to buy something just because you want it. And she said, it makes a whole lot more sense than buying something because you don't want it. And I thought that was hilarious. And I went and showed it to my mom and got in trouble. I was like 14 at this point also. I think that's important to note. And she was really mad about it. And she said, well, you can't buy things just because you want them. And I was like, it's just funny. It's just a joke. And she said, well, you can't always buy stuff just because you want it. Just because you want something doesn't mean you should get it. Okay. I look back and I think my mom had a lot of resentment about anything with spending, even when my dad was making more money, because for a long time they were like below poverty level line, had a lot of struggle with affording even basic necessities. And my parents were adamantly opposed to getting any kind of assistance like SNAP benefits or anything like that, because they thought it was like slapping God in the face. Those were their words. To get any kind of assistance from the government rather than relying on God to bring it to them. And so we went without a lot. And then even when my dad started making more money, I think because my mom was not making her own money, she was kind of resentful of the control that he had over the finances. And so she took it out on us. That really isn't pertinent to this topic, but we'll get with it. Probably needed to be said out loud anyway. So going back to the point of that is that she gave me this story, this idea that you shouldn't buy things that you want. You should only buy the basic necessities. And to this day, when I am grocery shopping with my own money that I earned, I mean, not for the last 2 months, but before, if I see something in the store and I'm like, ooh, that looks tasty, I would like that, I feel guilty for buying it. Thanks, Mom. But it's a story that needs to be challenged. The way that you release your pelvic floor, good information for everybody to have, honestly, is to take a deep breath. Big, deep belly breath. Breathe into your belly, let your belly expand and get fat. And hold it for a minute and then exhale. That big, deep inhale expands your pelvic floor muscles and makes it relax. The way that you let go of the stories that you have that aren't serving you anymore, that are holding you back, that are keeping you from allowing in what it is that you want, is to challenge them. And you don't have to challenge them to the point of getting to the opposite thing. Oh, I don't deserve to buy stuff that I want. I'm selfish if I buy stuff that I want. I'm irresponsible if I buy stuff that I want. You don't have to get to the point of, I love buying stuff that I want. I deserve to buy stuff that I want. You don't even have to get it that far. You can just say, is that true? And you don't even have to answer that question. You can just say, is that true? To yourself. And say it every time it comes up. Is that true? Is that true? Is that true? And you will gradually get to the point where maybe you can say, I love buying the things that I want. I am happy I get to buy the things that I want. Buying the things that I want puts joy into the world. And the world needs more of that. Because creation, manifestation, is tied to pleasure. Which makes the sex metaphor make a lot more sense, right? It's tied to pleasure. And outside of the context of abuse, they're one and the same. And what's funny is that inside the context of abuse, they also become the same. You deserve what you want because you want it. And if you're anything like me, the first time you heard that, you had 4,000 objections and about 2,000 questions. Because my automatic go-to was, well, what if what you want is somebody else's husband? You don't deserve that. And I think we get very hung up on specifics, like that specific thing. And specifics can be really beneficial when you're trying to get clear on what you want, but specifics can be harmful when you're trying to call in what you want. Like, say, for example, you might have seen someone else's husband, and you're, oh, I would like somebody like him. Okay, that helps you visualize. But don't try to call in someone else's husband. That's just rude, first of all. But it goes into the difference between deserving and being entitled. To deserve means to be worthy of, You're worthy of having what you want. To be entitled means that you have a right to certain benefits and privileges. And they're very similar words and are often used interchangeably, but they're different words for a reason. There's subtle differences between them. You deserve to have someone who you love, who loves you, and you are attracted to, and they are attracted to you. You deserve to have what you want, and that is what you want. You have hyperfixated on the specifics so much that you cannot allow in what you want. You are clinging so tightly to specifics that you can't allow in what you want because you get too zoomed in. And I know I'm very guilty of this. You get too zoomed in. You're looking at, okay, well, what I really want is this specific job in this specific city with these specific hours and blah, 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 blah. No. What I want is to be able to pay my bills and pay off my debts and buy the things that I want when I want them and buy the things that I need when I need them and take care of whatever other needs arise whenever they arise, and to be generous and to be able to support the businesses and the people that I love in whatever their endeavors are. I want to be able to have enough control over my time that if I don't feel well, I don't have to go anywhere or be anywhere, and I will not be penalized for that. I want to have enough control over my time that if I'm feeling creative, I can just create. And there's nothing that's going to hold me back from doing that. I want enough autonomy over myself that no matter what it is that I'm doing, I can fully express myself. I can have pink hair if I want to. I can get a neck tattoo if I want to. And no one's going to call me in and tell me that I'm not following some kind of dress code or anything like that, that I can control my own self without being penalized for it. I can make the decisions for my own body without being penalized for it. I want my time to be spent doing something that is worthwhile and makes a good difference in the world. Whether that is working alone or as part of a team, I want my time to be spent putting goodness out into the world. And if I can focus on those things, then I've taken the deep breath. Because I'm not fixated on the outcome. I'm not trying to control an outcome. I'm not trying to make something specific happen. I'm not so caught up in the hows and the whats and the whens and the wheres. I know what my why is because I want it. Because it makes me happy. Because I deserve it. And if I focus on that instead of the specific outcome, then I will get exactly what I want. And I don't need to worry about what it looks like. And I think this is sometimes why vision boards get in the way of manifestation for people, because, and it can be a helpful tool. Don't get me wrong. It can be a very helpful tool. I had a vision journal when I was doing my prerequisites for nursing school because I wanted more than anything to be a trauma surgeon. That was my goal. I was going to nursing school so I could afford to move out of my parents' house so they could no longer tell me what to do and control me. And then I was going to, while working as a nurse, finish my bachelor's degree in biochemistry and then go to med school. And I wanted so bad to go to Vandy. I wanted so bad to go to Vanderbilt Med School. I could taste it. I went and toured the school while I was still working on my undergrad degree. I actually interviewed with someone there, the admissions counselor for Vanderbilt Med School. Very nice gentleman. And I had this whole journal that had like pamphlets for the med schools and printouts of different programs and pictures of the campus and pictures of the hospital, because I was like, maybe like I might get a job at the hospital, like part-time to help pay bills and stuff. We'll see. I had it all planned out. I could see it. I could taste it. I could feel how real it was. And it did not happen because I developed a condition called Raynaud's disease, which most people call Raynaud's. And because I had a professor in anatomy and physiology who was a stickler for pronouncing things the dictionary accurate way, I am physically incapable of saying it that way on the first try, because it's a person's name and he was French and it's pronounced Raynaud's. Anyway, I realized that it would be very difficult to be able to be a good surgeon if I can't feel my fingers whenever I get cold, and it's a progressive disease. And what's funny is once I got off night shift and stopped working in super cold environments, it's not that much of a problem for me anymore. But I think what needed to happen is what happened. But I gave up my dream, and I realized the journey was the point. It wasn't the destination, but because I needed to believe in a dream so big that it forced me out of their house. Because if all my plans were just to finish an associate's degree in nursing and move out, I wouldn't have done it. I needed a bigger reason. And my bigger reason was, well, I'm going to be going to school and going to work, and they're both right there, so it makes more sense for me to live right close to both of them. I don't know that I ever would have gotten out of my parents' house if I hadn't had that dream. The dream was the reason that I got out, and the journey was the point, not the destination. I was so fixated on that dream that when I lost it, I really lost direction. I lost my way. I didn't know what to do anymore. And I'm very grateful that things happened the way that they did. It was a difficult journey. And the transition period was hard. The transition that I had to go through during that point of finding out that I had this disease and struggling with depression and failing classes and realizing maybe this wasn't the journey for me, it was very difficult because it was all I had thought about for past 4 years. But I didn't lose anything by not getting exactly what I wanted. I gained my life and control over my own life. And I got really hung up in why I deserved to follow my dream before it all fell apart. And I get really hung up a lot on why I deserve to have the things I want. I feel like, I'm a lawyer presenting a case to a judge and a jury. Here's why I deserve to have these things. I know it costs money. And of course we don't like to spend money. But I deserve it because, so and I've got like a whole case built in my head of why I deserve whatever it is. And the fact of the matter is, I deserve it because I want it. I don't need to make a whole court case defending that to myself or anyone else, because the why I deserve it is because I want it. Because we think that we have to be entitled to it to get it. And that is not the case. You are worthy of what you want. You get it when you allow it in. And you allow it in when you relax. And you don't focus so hard on controlling the outcome or what exactly it has to look like. Just let it happen. Just surrender to the joy that you will have whenever you get what it is that you want. Because you've already got it. And yes, I'm going to go back to the sex metaphor one more time, because if you are trying to orgasm, you absolutely will not. You have to let go and relax in order for it to happen. This is probably the dirtiest episode that I've ever done. And I had an episode that was entitled Sex. I hope that this was beneficial for y'all. I hope this shed some light on some things, made you think about things a little differently, shifted your perspective a little bit. And I hope that you will practice taking deep breaths and relaxing your pelvic floor and questioning your stories to allow in what it is that you really want. And I hope that you will join me next time on the podcast as we both continue to work on our mosaic in progress. Just a reminder for everyone, I am actively working to get my podcast off of problematic platforms. It is a work in progress, like everything in my life. And I would love it if you would join me over on Patreon. If you just listen to the podcast, you don't have to pay anything. They'll drop on Sundays like they do everywhere else. If you would like early access to podcast episodes, they drop on Fridays for all paid subscribers. And it's, again, patreon.com/mosaic in progress. You can find all of my links at linktree.com/mosaic in progress. And I updated my TikTok this past week, so it is also mosaic in progress. So it matches everything else now. Everything's mosaic in progress, and you can find me there. And if you're feeling exceptionally generous and want to help me pay my car loan so they don't repo my Jeep, I've got pay links in my link tree. Again, that's linktree.com/mosaic in progress. And if you would like to make a donation so that I can continue to have a vehicle and maybe pay electric bills and things like that, I would be ever so grateful if you felt inclined to do that. And again, please join me next week as we both continue to work on our mosaic in progress.